Cool. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Job Board Secrets interview. Wrenchway is a new recruitment app and website for the auto industry. It gives techs a insider's view of dealership operations, equipment, pay levels, company culture, and other pertinent information. We're seeing a new crop of job marketplaces in the blue collar space. I wrote about apps like Trade Hounds last year, and I think Wrenchway is another one to watch here in this space. So Jay Goninen is the co-founder and president at Wrenchway, and he's on the show today. Hey, Jay, good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. We were just talking about it's been a few years, but really happy to be talking to you again.
Yeah, we met in Nashville at a job board conference. You were running what, Find a Wrench or findamechanic.com back then?
Find a wrench. It's funny when we did that. I had a company that's the initial company that I started called Find a Wrench, which was more of a traditional headhunter for the same industry. Right, we've always been in automotive and diesel space, trying to help shops find mechanics. And so I had bought a job board by the name of findamechanic.com, and really was unfamiliar with job boards in general, and so bought that, and then got invited to that conference where I was able to meet a lot of really good people. That was an awesome conference down in Nashville, but really, yeah, bought findamechanic.com. We ended up after a while kind of just bringing that into the Find a Wrench fold, and kind of doing away with the Find a Mechanic thing. But I learned a lot in buying that. It was from a Silicon Valley group that bought niche job boards, or not even niche job boards, niche websites, and then kind of put their Silicon Valley spin on it.
Mhm.
They had actually, I think, sold a company called About RV, or About RV Parking or something like that. Like they had a couple others that were really like they sold them for pretty good money. But the Find a Mechanic one was one that didn't go over all that well, and there was a long story behind that. But I just happened to run across it, and ended up buying those guys, and then yeah, from there we kind of folded that into the Find a Wrench side.
Okay. Why do you think Find a Mechanic didn't work? If you think back.
So a lot of it was outdated. The like so that the database that they were selling, and the guy was super honest and upfront about what it was, right? And we were looking at contacts and connections, and some of those connections we still have to this day in terms of business connections. But at the time when they had bought, it went through this whole, there was a piece of fraud involved with it, like through prior ownership, that where somebody improperly inflated numbers, intentionally or unintentional. I don't know the whole story. I don't know anything about that side, but they had sold it to somebody else for a bunch of money, and then when that person got in and started diving into it, they're like, "This is not great," and they were a far more honest person, and so they ditched it off to the group that I ended up buying it from. So um, it was it was clunky back end. I think it was all custom developed. I remember, I think you might have been the first one to tell me about Jobboard.io back in the day. But I like this was it wasn't that, right? Like it was, they had custom developed it, and I was spending a bunch of money with they had Canadian developers, so I was using those developers, and they were great guys, really enjoyed them. But as I got to learn more and more about the platform, I'm like, they made this way too complicated, and it's just like it for what it was. I don't know. It was
It's a
the
familiar
the
story.
database.
I've mismanagement of job boards and poor tech is definitely some of the top reasons I've seen them fail over the years.
Yeah, and then the actual resumes that were in there, that was a really intriguing part to me, was to be able to get access to those resumes, right? And as I started diving into them and into the database in general, I started noticing, like, okay, they're from 2004, and this is like 2017 or 18, right?
Yeah,
So like a lot of really old, outdated resumes that weren't all that valuable.
gotcha. Okay, so tell me more about the origin of Wrenchway and how that got started out of Find a Wrench.
Yeah, so we had our the Find a Wrench side, again, more traditional headhunting, in kind of a non-traditional way, but what we were finding was that we were really struggling to stand out on Indeeds, the ZipRecruiters, the Career Builders in terms of basically we had simplified it down to the point to where we had said, okay, shops, you want these jobs posted out everywhere. You want, like it just almost like a aggregator on steroids a bit, where we would put some spend behind. And Indeed, obviously, is more of a at least from our experience, was far more of a manual process. They didn't like to work with other people all that much. Um, so we were spending a lot of money with Indeed and not getting a lot of traction there. And same with the other job boards. And so what we wanted was a way for shops to essentially be able to sell themselves to technicians or mechanics. And so we felt pretty strongly that it was like all the job ads kind of looked the same, and there wasn't really a lot distinguishing them. It felt like a lot of the job postings in general kind of sounded the same. They all said they had great management. Every company says they have great management and great family atmosphere and all this stuff,
Yep.
but there's a real shortage out there of skilled people. And so what we did was then create a platform around giving shops the ability to tell their story and be able to kind of differentiate themselves in more of an employer marketing type of standpoint. And so we created the platform and have been tweaking and fixing it ever since, right? Like we think the page itself is still very similar to the day that we launched it. We've made a lot of changes, but probably more impactful to our end than what the customer sees, because the page is really nice and clean when a shop gets there. But we also developed a program on the backside to where we're teaching shops basically how to do content and how to get content out there and videos and those sorts of things. So um, yeah, it's really evolved since we launched it in 2020, and here we sit 2 years later, and just continuing to get traction with it. And as a whole, I'm over 5 years in business, and we actually sunset Finder Wrench, the Finder Wrench brand, at the end of last year. So we're exclusively Wrenchway now. We found another thing we learned was that we had two different companies and it was causing confusion amongst our customers. So
Yeah.
we needed to kind of get them into one. So we've done away with the job posting and the aggregator type stuff, and really just kind of focused on our own thing.
Right. So you said no jobs there, but you have something called reverse job post. To explain that for me.
Yeah, it's a cool piece of the platform. We have an app for technicians, and we do a variety of things on the app. We have a video feed, almost like an Instagram style video feed of the videos that shops are putting out there, and some different type of polling and questioning of the technicians and asking them what they like about the industry. Our mission as a company is really to try and improve the industry, and so we want to get feedback from these technicians, and I do think it's really helpful. We actually use that feedback to turn into content of our own that we're putting out. But then the reverse job posting is essentially like a dating app for mechanics. And when I say that, they can fill out a profile. It does not include their name or where they work, but it does talk about their experience, their education, their certifications, and what they're looking for in their next job, along with a geographic range that they'd be willing to go work. So they fill that out. All of the shops on our network are notified that there's a technician in the area that's looking, and then they can freely message back and forth from there.
I love that idea. I think I've long been fascinated about sort of reverse job boards in that respect, and letting employers come to the seeker versus the other way around. And I think that's an excellent way of solving a talent problem in this market. But give me some more thoughts on that.
Yeah, it is. We've seen some really cool things come from it. It is crazy when you start to hear of the stories of people moving across the country because of your app, and like changing their entire lives, right? And I think that's really impactful, and it's fun to see that, and it gives them the ability to do their due diligence on a business to see what they like, maybe what they don't like, etc. Um, so yeah, I think overall it's a really good way of going about it. I think we still from the from the learning side, one of the things that I think we're still trying to figure out is how to get the technicians to answer the requests in a timely fashion, because oftentimes they don't have their phones, they can't have their phones at work, or
Yeah.
they're not supposed to be on them. So uh, and they're accessing it primarily through mobile. So I think being able to get them to respond quicker is a big thing. But other than that, I mean, the conversations that go on out there are awesome. We're still working with employers and trying to teach them not to try and sell 100% of the time. They're always like, come work for us, come work for us. I'm like, no, 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 just try to start a conversation. Just like have a normal conversation, like at a cocktail party, and you'll be miles ahead of where you're at. And I think some of the shops struggle to get around that.
Yeah, interesting. Um, Talk to me about your marketing aspect of this. How do you market something like this to potential technicians out there in the world, and get them to join the platform? And how many do you have on the site or platform at this point?
Yeah, a couple thousand on there. The marketing side of it is really
Mm.
everything we do is content marketing focused, right? So we're creating content constantly. We've got a really decent following. We just started TikTok probably 6 months ago, and we've got a couple of the ladies on our marketing team do a phenomenal job out there. So any of you listening, go follow us on TikTok. It's awesome. They're funny. I don't know, they're far more witty than I am, because they can come up with content for that, and I still don't fully understand the platform. But the amount of views that we get off of TikTok is insane, and it's really cool. But other than that, I mean, we do a weekly podcast with smart people in our industry, specific to our industry. That's got a pretty great following now as well. And we've been doing that for probably 2 years. We started that right at the beginning of the pandemic as well. So the podcast has been going strong, but then just in general, we're not overly salesy at all, right? Like I think we take a lot of pride in trying to educate the industry and trying to uh, talk to smart people. We do monthly webinars where we have a roundtable of people where we talk exclusively about the industry, and we were able to get some pretty great guests on those. We just had one last week, and I think with that one we had probably 400 registered. It was a very kind of specific topic, but in the past we've had up to 800 to 1,000 people register for it. We do a yearly uh, virtual conference called Techmission, and it's basically 2 full days of talking about industry stuff. And so we do it all virtually, which in a startup world, that was one of the things we probably lucked out on in terms of COVID, because we wouldn't be able to afford to have some big conference like the one we went to in Nashville, right? Like
Yeah.
we really had to come up with different ways to do that. We're able to get a lot of exposure, and I think we're able to get more people to it because they're not paying to go somewhere to a conference. I do still miss and I still go to a lot of conferences myself, but I do miss the in-person aspect of it, right? And the relationship building and
Yeah.
the networking, because it's just not, I'm a people person. I love going out and talking to people. So that's always fun to me.
I mean, I love what you're saying, Jay, because to me, I tell job board owners, look, you need to build a community around your niche. And I think you guys are doing exactly that. I mean, this is, from what it sounds like, this is a blueprint for building a community overall. But just talk about that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think the community aspect is so fun for me because it drives my purpose. I've been in this business all my life, so like it's something I'm very passionate about. I love this industry, and so I think being able to bring people from different aspects, we're talking dealerships, the small mom and pop shop down the road, the fleets, there's some of these monster fleets like a Walmart or whatever, um, Amazon, bring all of those people into a room to talk about things so everybody gets benefit and that we make the industry better. There's a shortage for a reason, right? And it's because there's a perceived maybe lack of respect or lack of good treatment in our industry. And being able to get everybody on the same page so that we make it better, and at least hopefully make our mark on this industry by the time we're all said and done, I think is big. And it just, for me, I love the purpose of what we do, and I think it drives me to get up in the morning because I think we're making the industry a better place to be at. And when it comes down to that, it's not just a platform anymore. It is about the community, and I think that's just so much more enjoyable as a business in general.
Yeah, very cool. Pricing, how does that work for employers? Let me break down there.
Yeah, so we've played with this a little bit, right? Like this is something where we created a platform right off the like from the ground up, and so that was something we played with initially, and this is something that we're working through right now. We had done a fairly big onboarding fee because it does take us time to get the company onboarded, because we do require some transparency, photos of their shop, that kind of stuff. And so we spend a lot of time. So we had a fairly significant onboarding fee. We've actually switched and are working through right now a basically it's like 225 a month, but we ask for we require a 6 month commitment. And then the hope is that they stay on once they start getting in the program and start seeing it work, that after that they'll be on for a while.
So monthly subscription and for the shops.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Very cool. You've been in the job board space for a while. What are some, if you had to kind of pick one thing, overarching high level thing to tell other job board owners who are just getting started, maybe, what would you say to them?
Create content. And I think for most job boards, you probably don't, you're never going to have the spend ability of like an Indeed or ZipRecruiter. Like you're just never going to have the budget of that. Maybe hopefully one of those people out there somehow takes on Indeed at some point, but I think being able to create content in a way that is authentic and shows who you are and tells your story. And we're lucky right now, right? We've got platforms like LinkedIn. LinkedIn was super impactful to me in growing the business. But it also was because I wasn't afraid to get on camera. I don't like being on camera necessarily, but I wasn't afraid of it. And so starting to create content was such a big piece of what we did, and documenting our journey and what we're doing. And it is cool now. I mean, looking back 5 years on my LinkedIn feed and being able to see a video from when we very first started, it's pretty awesome to see that, the whole journey and how far we've come. So, to me, the biggest piece is to create content. The other piece, in remembering back to when I was doing it, and we had the employ like the I'm sorry, the headhunter type of firm, and then we also had the job board. So in a lot of this, in both cases, I was just me working in my basement, right? Like it wasn't like we had this big team or anything like that. So I made sure to allocate a half an hour a day to be able to go out and do something to create content, right? And so it wasn't a ton, but I also had a million other fires to put out. And now that we've built the team, we're a team of 30 plus now. And I think now that we've built a team to be able to have the capabilities to do some of this stuff, and it's not all reliant on me, is a big deal. The other thing that I did that was pretty impactful to our business was I took on a business partner, and somebody that is a friend of mine, had a background in tech, and he was a CPA starting off his career, and just a really, really smart guy. But he likes to do the stuff that I don't like to do. So he likes to, do accounting, and he likes to do process oriented stuff and create processes. I'm not that guy. Like I think it took me a long time to get around that, but that's not my personality. So when I found that really good complement to my skill set, that allowed me to focus more on creating content and doing the things that were impactful to our company. So the business partner piece of it to me was it had a huge impact on our business.
Good stuff, Jay. Well, I appreciate your time today and your advice. And I think you're on something here with Wrenchway. And so I look forward to seeing it flourish. So thank you very much. And it's wrenchway.com for the audience out there. And you have also Google and Apple apps, right?
Yes. Yep. Just a Wrenchway app. It's for those of you not in the industry, it probably won't make a lot of sense if you download it. So it's interesting just because there is a big video feed of shops being able to tell kind of their stories and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I thank you so much for having me on today. Have always been a big fan of what you've done, and always greatly appreciate your advice early on in my career in this space. And um, hopefully some of the folks that we saw in Nashville, we had a blast down there. So hopefully some of those folks are listening, and I'd like to say hi to those people because it was a lot of fun. I still remember that conference like it was yesterday.
Definitely. Well, yeah, again, thanks, Jay, and look forward to seeing future updates from Wrenchway. So appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Chris.